Come here, James. Come say hi. Oh, say hi. Say hi,
Hey,
bud.
James, can you
Say
say
hi.
hi? You've got a bus. You've got a yellow school bus.
Yeah, he likes the school bus. Say hi. Say nine nine. All
Oh,
right.
I agree.
All right, buddy. Night night. He disagrees. All right, Jared. What time is it for you?
It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, man. We'll hope we don't have. We're not causing you an all-nighter.
Yeah, I had to catch up on a few other things, so yes, it was, but it's not your fault.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I'm glad to have you. And Isaac's back. He's having dinner. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I fell asleep pretty much for like 3 hours in the afternoon, and I didn't have lunch, so my mom was kind of worried. I was starting to get hungry, and I was like, "Wow, I got a 5-minute break between classes. I'll run."
Okay.
So I'll probably keep my camera off unless you don't mind seeing me eating a sandwich.
That's up to you. So we're good.
Okay, I'll turn it on then. If I get shy, I can just turn it off.
Yeah, that's up to you. No worries. Okay. Well, let's get started. I had a quick thought as well. I wanted to have a prayer. I'll give the thought first. I wanted to give the thought because ironically, or coincidentally, whatever, I went out just about a half hour ago. I was on LDS.org, just the homepage, and the First Presidency message is from President Uchtdorf, and the title of it is Our Father, Our Mentor. And so I thought that was a pretty good fit for our topic this week. Of course, he's talking about Heavenly Father, and he's talking about he gives us an invitation in there as well. So President Dorf says, fortunately, our Heavenly Father has given us wonderful instructions for structuring our lives and putting together our best selves. Those instructions work regardless of our age or circumstances. He's given us the gospel and the church of Jesus Christ. He has given us the plan of redemption, the plan of salvation, even the plan of happiness. He has not left us alone with all the uncertainties or challenges of life, saying, here you go, good luck, figure it out. In other words, Heavenly Father is our God, and God is a mentor to us. In this sense, let us all be mentors, eager to reach out to help one another to become our best selves. Because we are God's offspring, we do have the potential to become like Him. Loving God and our fellow men, keeping God's commandments, and following Christ's example are the straight, narrow, and joyful path back into the presence of our heavenly parents. So, a thought for us, an invitation from President Uchtdorf to be mentors, and how timely, right? So I know that's true. We're all, when it comes down to is we're all in this together, and we need to help one another, regardless of differences, regardless of station in life. We're trying to help one another be better, and so just keep that in mind. Leave that with you. I want to go ahead and start with a prayer as well. Somebody want to offer prayer for us?
I'll do that. It's my first time here, so.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity that we have to gather together as a team and as a group to discuss important secular matters and things that will be able to translate to spiritual uses as well. Father, we're grateful for this opportunity we've been blessed with. We're grateful that we're all able to attend. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Well, how's it going? Keeping busy?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we're right at the midway point of the semester, so it goes fast. At least for me.
I was just speaking to my wife. She was saying just last week, time really flies, and then today it was exactly a week later, and it feels like it's been a day.
Yeah.
So it's going crazy fast.
Yeah, it does. It's impressive how that happens. Well, good. We're jumping into we've jumped into the topic of training and development this week.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you have discussed that with your groups already. Some of you haven't. So appreciate you gathering so we can talk about that a little bit. Of course, we'll have a big part of our class listening to the recording. So good topic. Lots to discuss in there. A handful of readings. So to kind of kick things off, I just wanted to talk about raise a question, but first talk about a couple terms. Just scratching my notes here. So there's this term of training, there's a term of development, and then there's this word mentor. What is a mentor?
A mentor is some kind of someone who watches over you and guides you, who's been through something, and so knows the way. I mean, they're not going to tell you what to do, but they will help you get through, and they're not going to solve the problem for you, but they'll say, well, what about? Have you thought of?
Okay. Yeah, so they don't do a lot of telling. Maybe they're good facilitators.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of sounding boards some of the time.
A sounding board, you said?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would say in most cases they're always someone that they have more experience than you in a particular field or area, and you sort of look to them to give you some guidance in developing yourself.
Yeah. I can think of a lot of mentors I've had in life, so I'm sure we all can. What about you, Isaac? How do you define a mentor?
Well, I would define a mentor as someone as you can, look up to, because they got the experience, and they can share the experience, but they know that in order for you to grow and reach their point, you got to do your homework as well. So I also agree with the fact that they might sound a little bit boring, and it might be like, why won't they solve my problem? But that's their purpose. I mean, they're just to guide us, just to give you like basic guidelines, and they allow us to do the hard work, which is finding our own answers by our own means.
So a good mentor should want us to grow, right? Grow and develop.
Yeah.
Alan, Jess. Agree. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're just talking about what a mentor is. We hear that word. I'm just trying to define it. So we've each kind of put our 2 cents in on that. What comes to mind for you?
I think he's a trainer, an educator, someone that you can follow, someone to get advice from. Those are the ones that come to my mind right now.
Yeah, I like it. So a thought I had about mentors, as you guys are speaking, and President Uchtdorf pointed that out in his thought, we can all be a mentor. There's not an age requirement. Usually, like Jared said, there's some experience that they have or some expertise, but a mentor should be someone that is focused on other people. And there's not, you can be older than that person, you could be younger, it doesn't matter the position or the status. It's there. So we read about the mentors, and we'll jump in there in a second. But I wanted to discuss something that came to mind as well. So the topic this week is training and development. Why do you think we make that distinction, training and development? Is there a difference, or is it the same thing? What do you think on that?
Well, talking from my experience, they made it very clear to me that I was not only a trainer, but I was in charge of developing people. So, for example, when I was a supervisor, my task was to, let people grow, and I knew that if I wanted them to grow, I need to, find a way to let them progress and develop certain skills they had acquired, that they had, or perhaps they didn't know they had, or that were necessary. To train someone is just pretty much telling them how to do their job or how to do something.
Okay, so you got that instruction in your job role. So how did you use that to your advantage? Train and develop. What did you do? What were the differences?
Well, for me, so I knew I had a very specific program that I had to follow. But in order to succeed, I needed to observe those that I was training and determine what skills they were missing, or because we were looking for a very specific set of skills that you need to acquire. So if you have those skills, you would go through training like real quick. But if you didn't have those skills, well, I would need to find a way to help you acquire those skills so that your training becomes easier for you. So it's interesting because training and development go hand to hand. If you train someone but you develop the person, he may have all the knowledge of the program, but he might not know how to do his or her job. And on the other hand, if he has all the skills but you didn't train the person, he will have like all the weapons to succeed, but he won't have the knowledge to carry out his duties.
Oh, okay. Anybody else want to add to that? So can you train someone without developing someone, or vice versa?
I think you can train someone without developing them, because to develop means they're making progress, and you can put forth all kinds of training. They can sign the document that they're trained, and they might be behind where they were when they started.
Yeah, so sometimes you can run them through a checklist of training items, and mark the boxes, but development kind of, in my mind, is a little bit different.
I think it kind of goes along with the way Elder Bednar always talks about acting and being acted upon. We can be acted, we can train somebody, we can talk at them, and we can give them a load of information and attempt to sort of act upon them, but only until they act for themselves do they actually grow, do they actually become converted. So I think it's a similar transition.
Ooh, I like it.
I like that point.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, I said I like that point. I think he's absolutely right. My background's been in the transit industry, so I've trained, I don't want to say hundreds of drivers, but I have. And like I said, there's a difference between giving him or showing him the skills that they require to do the job and developing those skills, showing them how to develop them skills. Well, the way they develop them skills is actually going out on the street and driving the bus and making the turns and everything else. I, as a trainer, if I step away from them at that point, I have not developed them. I let them go just as far as I got them trained to that point. Like she was saying, that you mark the X's and the O's and everything else and check them off that says, yes, I feel that they can do this. But to go that one step forward, I need to be with them, monitor them, come back and check on them and things like that in order to develop, because they might hit curbs and stuff, and then I need to develop them farther and show them how not to hit those curves. So that's simplifying it.
Yeah, I actually want to. Now that you mentioned that, I mean, in my program, like I had specific milestones that I needed to reach, and I knew that in order to reach those milestones, like just giving them the knowledge of the program was not enough, because they needed to learn how to talk to a customer. They needed to learn how to, conduct themselves during the call. So that involved, having role plays. That involved having like little examples. So I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, you might succeed, but I mean, they might know that they might have the whole knowledge, but what if they hit something unexpected? Like, will they be able to survive?
Right.
You know?
Well, we're talking about the mentor program and stuff like that. I think it's a great program because it allows people to, first of all, they have somebody that they can look up to if that's what they need to do, but they have somebody that they can go to when they're having problems instead of just saying I'll figure it out on my own. They have someone that assigned to them that is there to develop them, to make them better, and to make them the best they can be. So I am so in favor of a mentor program. That's kind of the way that I've run all my businesses and everything else is I think it was Elder Bednar who also said, it's not what you do now, it's what you leave behind, that brings you forward. And, because that's not what is important, it's what you leave. And I think that's what mentoring's all about. It's developing that person so they can take your place.
Yeah, train your replacement, right?
That's exactly it. It's what you're doing. You're training your replacement.
Yeah.
When you go in for an interview, one of the questions they might ask you, it's just like we're being asked, what are our plans in 10 years from now? And that's what you have to base your life on is I'm sure you've asked those questions to people that you're interviewing. Tell me what you plan on doing 10 years from now. I remember one time I was asked that, I looked right at the boss and I said, I plan on having your job.
Awesome.
And he looked at me like, well, it's a lot harder than that. And I said, well, that's what I plan on doing. You asked, that's what I want. I said, so you can't shy away from that. But having that program where you have that person, see, if that boss would have said, hey, that's great, I'm going to show you how to do that. That's what a mentor does.
Yeah, and we need both sides of that. So, Jeff, your 10-year question, it's only us that needs to have that plan. We are all responsible for our own future and our own growth, right?
Right.
But we're not successful by ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's kind of a catch-22 of both sides. So, and it goes back to Jared. We need to be agents, and I think that's one of the underlying messages, at least for me, in this week's topic is, developing ourselves. Again, I always like to draw it back to ourselves. Self-development. You guys are all seeking education because you want to grow. You have goals. You have something in mind that you're trying to accomplish. That's up to you. No one's in control of that but you. But at the same time, we have to be able to support each other in that effort because we can't do it on our own. So it's kind of that double-sided message that I wanted to hit on. So let's jump into the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. So how long did it take to get this ball rolling on this mentor program?
Took a couple of years.
That kind of depends. Oh. Go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just going to say it took several years from the initial thought to it actually being implemented. It wasn't really rolling per se by the end of the first year. So.
Agreed. Why did it take so long?
You've got to build the foundation. You've got to start and work things through and get people in place.
Well, I think too. It also said that they put it on the shelf for a while because they worked on diversity first. They thought that was more important. So
Yeah.
they put it on the shelf, and then they realized, uh-oh, this is part of diversity. This is part of what we need to do. And so it really wasn't, you know, when it was first brought up, it was a great idea, but they just felt like they needed to go in a different direction.
Yeah, what did they notice? You have that. I forgot his name. The gentleman that started with the company, I think back in like 1994. He tried to get a view of the culture of the company.
Started with an M or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Moscow or something like that. Is
Moscow.
that
Yeah, that's right.
Moscow? Yeah.
So something you'll hear a lot about in business or in HR speak is culture. That word culture. Is culture easy to change?
No.
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 No. Why not?
Well, first of all, it requires everybody buying in.
Yeah, buy-in. Yeah, buy-in is a big deal. So in culture, one of the definitions I like of that is it's the way things are done around here. It's kind of that
Yep.
collective, unwritten standard of behavior. And there can be good things about it, there could be bad things about it. And so this Mr. Moscow comes in and he notices some things, and they want to focus on that. So, Jared, you mentioned the buy-in. They didn't get the buy-in right away. Why is buy-in so important?
If the individual's not invested into what the goal is or the objectives are, and they don't really care, then they're not gonna. There might be standards that you set that they have to keep, but they're not going to have the attitudes and the motivation to do things on their own.
Well, there's also the part if they haven't bought in, they're going to migrate right back to their comfort zone because it's easier and it's their prior culture. That's where they've been, and sometimes that's where they've been for 20 years.
Yeah, change is hard.
Well, there's also the financial part of it. Anytime you start a new program and stuff, it costs money. So if you don't have buy-in, they need money. The first place they're going to go is they're going to take your money. You know?
Yep, that's true. And sadly, that's how it goes. Say, oh well, what's this going to cost?
Yeah.
But we gotta learn to look at the trade-offs and make the sale, right?
Right.
That's good. So what finally put this over the edge? So they went into this diversity effort and found out what Jeff mentioned, that hey, actually, leadership is part of diversity. How did they actually come around back to the need of this mentor program? Why do it? Why would an organization want to do this training and development? Why is it such a big deal?
Bank wanted incentives for people to continue working there, and they wanted something that would not only help the bank but help the people. And so, to some extent, they weren't doing a Jack Welch like he did with GE and wiped everybody out. They were doing help the people and see where we can recruit, see how we can retain the best, and see how we can develop them to be even better.
I agree. Retention, it's huge. And have anybody or any of you been in an experience where maybe training was lacking, or you felt like you were on your own or didn't have that support? Anybody have experiences like that?
I think we probably all have.
I would venture.
Maybe it wasn't a full job, but in almost any job that you take, something's going to come up where either the person who trained you had never had that hit them in the face, or they didn't care to teach you about it because they wanted you to take the job. and you just have to go through it on your own.
Right, and how does that feel?
Stuff.
It's interesting.
It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have been there. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
It's interesting for yeah, I agree. So what is the tendency when that happens? How do you feel? I mean, where does your mind go when you're lacking that?
They're setting you up for failure.
Yeah. You wander around aimlessly until you figure out what you're doing.
And
Yeah.
you know what is even the worst part? I mean, people get mad at you. I mean, your boss gets mad at you, but it's like, well, come on, give me a break. You didn't teach me how to do certain things, and that happened to me when I was promoted out of the blue to supervisor, and the same as a trainer. I mean, it was just from one day to the other. Wow, boom, you're promoted, and that kind of felt awkward because I felt inadequate for the job, and I felt inadequate for a lot of things, but. And I had to, run against the wall a couple of times till I figured out, a lot of things on my own. But, that's what really, annoyed me from that job is that there was not a culture of training, there was not a culture of development. It was more like a culture of, whoa, somebody just quit. Let's just quickly fill this spot. And that was, that was not good for the company. That was actually harming the company. And it's still harming the company as far as my brother has told me.
Interesting. So that can give us another insight on development. If people are underdeveloped and not prepared for a promotion, it's not going to do them any good, right?
Correct.
Well,
It
it's a sink or swim.
Yeah. Yeah,
It causes unnecessary stress.
it does.
I mean, you're gonna get stressed. Still you're gonna get stressed because it's something new and you're not, you hadn't probably never done it before in your life. But it's easier when you kind of, you were trained and you were giving guidelines and stuff, rather than just, oh well, just go figure it out and you tell us later.
Yeah. So this idea of development, obviously, so a company should have interest in training their people because it's directly affecting their business. Development should also be a focus. And if we're missing those opportunities, we're going to have higher turnover, we're going to have negativity in our culture, all those things that spin out of control. So what did, and I think that zones in on the Reserve Bank. So they recognized eventually, after a few years, they finally recognized, and it says in the case, it says they saw a need for career development and career navigation. And there's some good programs in here, or good examples in here from people that benefited. So what do you like about the mentoring program? What did they do correctly?
They match people up. And so they matched up some interest, and somebody who had knowledge with somebody who wanted the same or similar knowledge.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think it was also beneficial that they had those monthly meetings where they were able to get together with another mentor, as a group. So it's not just a one-on-one thing. You get a little bit of diversity.
Yeah, so that continual networking, cross training type of thing.
Yeah.
What else? Do you think they had any opportunities in the selection process? How did they select the mentors?
Well, they look for people with experience. They look for people who had to be willing to donate some time and were willing to share what they'd learned.
Yeah, so there was some commitment there. There was also a statement in the case where they said that they were looking for people that did not have as much opportunity to connect with people or information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't that more for the mentees than the mentors?
Yes, I should. Yeah, so that is for the mentees. I guess that's what I was asking. So selecting the mentees, did they do that the right way?
Yeah, I think they did. Because whenever you put something together like that, you have people who will jump on anything and do anything, and they're always picked. You know, oh, he was on this committee, so he's good on this, and he's good, and he did this and this and this, and so you're always at the top of the list usually. Well, they kind of weeded those people out and said, okay, you've already done all this. Let's go for people who haven't had these opportunities. And I thought that was very good, because those people get overlooked all the time.
I like that. Yeah, it's the folks that get overlooked. So, and one question in the prep questions was, moving forward with the program, are you capturing? How do you make sure you're capturing all the folks that you might have folks that need some mentoring? They might not readily volunteer for that. So how do you make sure you're making it available to them?
Well, sometimes you have to point out to them what they're capable of doing, because it's old Scottish, all the gifts that God would give us to see ourselves as others see us.
Mm-hmm. So I'm actually there's some training I've been doing at work and training I've done in some of my other schoolwork about the positive leadership, and that's a big part of it is helping others see their capabilities. And back to Elder Bednar, right? Helping others increase their capacity and their confidence. Does any of you have a mentor or a leader that comes to mind that did that for you?
Well, I think for all of us, we get a church calling. You mentioned God as our mentor at the first of the meeting. Every time we get a church calling, that's like Him saying, okay, I know you can do this now. Let's see what you're willing to put forth.
Right, no matter how uncomfortable we feel about it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any examples? Think about the people that have mentored you and maybe helped you see your capacity. How'd they do it?
I had a general manager who took me under her wing and showed me basically how to become a general manager of a transit agency. And I mean, we would talk. She would show me the necessary financials, reports, and everything else. And because of her mentoring, I became a general manager. Yeah, it definitely works.
And that's interesting because she wasn't required to do all that for you.
No, she was not. And actually, I mean, the thing is we actually went head to head on a couple things. She was wanting the same job that I was wanting, because she was ready to move on. And but we were fine with that, because she said, well, I trained you. She goes, it's just up to them to decide who they want, and so you're absolutely right. She had no reason to do it. I mean, I could have just been an operations manager like I was and just done my job, and she didn't have to say, hey, I'll teach you how to do my job. So that was good.
Yeah, that's a good example. We tend to think of competition all the time at work.
Yes, we do.
I think we can flip that paradigm. Just support each other. There's an abundance mentality out there. You either have the scarcity mentality or the abundance mentality.
Yeah.
And, the more I read into that, that abundance mentality is what wins all the time. Any other thoughts on that? Anybody else have a
Well,
mentor or anybody else?
I was thinking on my first boss. No, wait, he was my second boss. So, well, he was kind of a supervisor slash manager, but he was promoted eventually. But I recall like the first days, that I started working there, and I was a little bit nervous. Like he saw that I was very quick with the system. Like he noticed that because he was just passing by, through places, and I was just fooling around with the system, trying to get myself entertained for a little bit. And he stood there, and he started like asking me a couple of questions, like if I was interested in the system, if if I had problems with it. And then he started like asking me a couple of questions to play around with the system, and I was able to do it fairly quickly. And he started teaching me, and from that point until before he left, like he started like teaching me things. Even though he was one of the busiest persons in our campaign, like he was all company. I'm sorry, like he would always like give me a little task or like little things to do, and in a way, he kind of prepared me and helped me learn things that nobody like I wouldn't have learned from other people except from him. So what I'm grateful for, about this experience, about that person, is that he gave me the confidence and the boost that I needed to realize that I had a great potential and keep growing. And that's something that that was very dear to me, and that's something I always try to transmit to others. Try to help them. Even if I was not forced to, or I don't have the obligation. Like I try to find ways to help others grow as well. So he kind of set a good example on me.
Well, that's good. And again, it's that service type of approach. So interesting that mentors, it's voluntary. They have the abundance mentality, and they don't have to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions that raises for me. So if we can tap into that, tap into those positive energy networks, that's what we want to zone in on. Have any of you heard of strength-based leadership? It comes from the Gallup organization, and the whole premise of it is that we lead others based on their strengths. It seems a little bit counterintuitive, but the reason it works is, hey, I'm good at what I'm good at. Of course, I can develop in other areas, but I want to develop my strengths instead of being focused on what I'm not good at all the time. So if you have some extra time or some interest, look up strength-based leadership, and it'll open up a lot of opportunity there for that positive type of thinking. Again, it goes back to that abundance mentality. So one thing that impressed me about the mentor program that I wanted to ask you about was, so how long was this program? They had it going for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it said it in the case, but one of my concerns was, man, how do you keep momentum going for that long? How do you think they accomplished that without it losing its steam, so to speak?
Well, they really worked at it. And Rubenstein, when one mentor backed out, she took over until they found another one, and she brought in speakers and set things up and really worked to keep it going. But sometimes something like that can be compared to a fire. Once you get it started and people see, hey, it's good, it's warm, they're going to do their part to keep it going as well.
So some commitment there to keep it going, to work at it.
I think another thing too is what would keep it going is seeing accomplishments, seeing people get promoted and things like that. And you have that attitude that, wow, if they did it, I can do it. So that keeps the momentum going.
Yeah, nothing like watching it happen, right?
Exactly.
Watching success. One of my mission presidents would say that. He says, success breeds success.
That's right.
I like it. Jared, what do you think? As far as keeping momentum, what did you see that they did right?
Well, yeah, just in terms of they had a lot of people in place to fulfill different roles. Yes, it was. What was her name? Rubinstein or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was the main driving force. But there were other people, set up along the way to assist in that. It wasn't just a one person show.
I agree. Not something we can do by ourselves. Back to that, right? So, one thing to bring out, that this brings out in my mind is you're gonna have some adversity, or you might have some challenges that's gonna try to derail your plan. But being open to evaluating your situation, kind of doing a spot check and saying, how's this going? Where do we need to make adjustments? I think that's a big deal versus just saying, hey, this isn't working, and letting it tucker out. Anybody had experience like that? Does that ring a bell?
We had something like that. I worked when I got home from my mission. I just got a quick job at ServPro, and they had a business consultant come in and evaluate, what they were doing well, what they weren't doing well, and they decided, no, we're going to put these few things into practice. And so one of the things was we would have these training meetings every Wednesday before we went out to work, and it was supposed to be an instructional thing that it was positive reinforcement, but they almost always ended up turning out negative. And instead of trying to make them more positive, they just stopped doing them altogether.
Oh, really? So what happened after they stopped having those meetings?
Well, there was just sort of, because a lot of it was instructional as well, to remind us about certain safety protocol and to make sure that we are doing things in the most accurate way, so that we wouldn't take hits from the insurance companies for making minor mistakes or major mistakes, depending on what it was. And so there were a lot of, that I noticed, there were increases in the number of mistakes that we made. Because people were lax, they forgot about, they forgot to wear a mask when they went into a room that had mold, or we forgot to contain it before we went in, or there was a lot of different things that people just got really lax on. And then when we get back from a particular job, we would get shouted at because we didn't follow these safety protocols. But some of us were new; we didn't know them. The older people that were more experienced, they sort of put the blame equally upon us as well. And we did have a responsibility to learn what we were supposed to do, but at the same time, without those training meetings, without that support, we were kind of like set up to fail.
Huh. It's a good example. As soon as the communication stopped, the quality and productivity went down too.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that? Not giving up?
I have an example of a positive, I think. I was working for a company called Veolia Transportation, and I was one of the, not to brag, but I was one of the up-and-coming stars of the company, and I was chosen to be on a I think there was 30 of us chosen to be on this committee. They sent us to Tampa, Florida for a week, putting together a program that would be employee-driven to cut down on workmen's compensation claims and injuries and type things like that. And it was called DRIVE. And I just talked to someone when I was down in Tampa this last week and asked him, he was from that company, and I asked him if it was still going today, and he said, well, it is still going, and that was probably, I'm guessing, 10 years ago. So it's still going today. He said it's been tweaked a little bit, but it's still going strong. So that was a good thing.
Excellent. So yeah, you latch on to the right purpose behind something.
Yeah.
If it's linked to this development that we're talking about, I think it can last, but you have to make those adjustments, right?
Well, when we put it together, being an employee-based program, obviously the first thing you think about is incentives for the employees. And I think we spent like a day figuring out what those would be, because you don't want to go too high and you don't want to go too low. But yeah, I mean, if this program was based on employees turning in other employees, seeing at-risk behavior and hazards and everything else. So they had to be rewarded somehow. And, so that's how that program works. And it's really a great program.
Huh. So that's interesting. So when I do onboarding for our new hire groups, I ask them about the word accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, is that a positive word or a negative word?
Yeah.
Depends which side of it you're on, right?
Which side you're on, exactly.
But I look at it as a positive word. And your example there, Jeff, is positive because, hey, it's okay to be honest and give feedback. It's okay to, have that accountability to call out behaviors that aren't good for the good of the organization, right?
Well, we are our brother's keeper, and we should be looking out for everyone.
Yeah. On that, I think that very much applies to our not just workplace, but our homes,
Mm-hmm.
our friendships, our relationships. That was another word I wanted to call out, relationships. What did the power of relationships accomplish at this bank with this mentoring program?
Well, some of the people, even after the program were finished, they'd already made plans to continue on the relationship and continue working together because they had found that they'd built something and that it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's no sense in making that end.
It said that some of the.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it mentioned that some of the employees had gone on to receive, they were sort of inspired to either make better, like look for better employment opportunities. Some of them, were inspired to further their education, to get those opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that part of it. What was the one gal? She's like working there for 20 years, and she said, I didn't even know about these other opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's where that comes in is, hey, we have to build those relationships. And so how does that apply to us? I think no matter what we're doing for work, you've probably heard the phrase, hey, people don't quit their job, they quit their boss or the people that they work with. Or how many times have you heard people say, oh, I love where I work because of the people I work with?
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. So if you can be a positive network and build those relationships, you'll be fine anywhere, as long as there's a good enough culture to make that happen. So was the mentor program, is it successful?
It's successful, but it doesn't mean it didn't have glitches. But, it's like any new program. We could have a program right now of a mentor program and maybe have it be 98% successful, then pull in 5 other people, and it might drop down to 60% successful just because they're different people. It's something that has to have some ongoing monitoring and tweaking to keep it working.
Agreed.
I'll give you a perfect example, the Pathway program.
Hmm.
Pathway program. My wife and I were Pathway service missionaries, and when we came into the program, it was robust and a lot of people interested and everything else, and it became harder and harder and harder to keep that energy going and to get new students and everything else. The following year, they started dwindling, and the following year it started dwindling, and so yeah, you can have success, but keeping it going, man, is tough.
Hmm.
So, and if you look at the Pathway program, the way they've done it is they've changed things.
Yeah.
They changed things, and they said, okay, we need to do this. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Atlanta, one of the Pathway programs is actually letting non-members in.
Oh, cool. I did not know that.
Yes, it's a pilot program letting non-members. Now, can you imagine
Hmm.
the impact of that? I mean, non-members reading the Book of Mormon and being studied, doing all this. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I did the Pathway program, when my husband and I did the Pathway program, one of the requirements was to be a member and to basically have your bishop say, okay, you can do it. Well, we had this one guy. He is a member. He's also living with his girlfriend. And by the end of the program, they had gotten married. She had joined the church, and her kids had joined the church. That's a powerful program.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, and that brings us to how the Lord works. I'm sure, you think of the church, you think of the programs, home teaching, things like that. It's not 100%, and but the Lord knows who it touches and what the purpose of it is. And then drawing it to a principle for us, faith came to mind when you guys were sharing. So how often do we act in faith, and the moment we do, what happens? We meet adversity, just so we can make that extra push.
That's exactly right.
And when we make that extra push, we are enabled. And I think that's where, as soon as we make that push, that's where the atonement comes in and says, hey, yep, you can do this, you're capable. But we can't do that without that partnership, through our covenants, through prayer, through study, but through faith. And so, organizations can exercise faith, make adjustments, but exercise faith. We get to exercise faith every day in choosing how we're going to act and what we're going to accomplish in our lives. So, each of you are exercising faith, seeking your education. We're all trying to grow and move forward. And it's fun. It's challenging, right? It's exhausting. Takes a lot of work, a lot of commitment, costs some money. But you're looking ahead with the faith of what is to come. So thank you for bringing that to my mind. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts on how this might apply to us or apply to our lives, our families, our work? Big takeaways from this lesson for you guys so far?
Well, one thing that I brought up in the group meeting, and Jared, forgive me for being repetitious, but to some extent, in our groups, we're mentoring each other. And I have been helped totally by the group I'm in. They're great.
That's awesome.
I think one thing that I've just sort of thought about. I mean, obviously the need for mentoring in the workplace, but each of us, I think, should be seeking mentors, because I think we all want to improve. We all want to do better in some regard, and there's a lot of things that we don't know. Even my uncle, who's an expert in telecommunications, he runs one of the largest telecommunications companies in Wyoming. He said that he's he's always learning new things, and he's always, you know, seeking out people who know more than he does. And I think that's something that, you know, everybody should adopt, whether you're, you know, the leader of the company that's trying to implement something, or, you know, just the basic employee who is receiving that leadership training.
That's a great thought. It's up to us, right?
Great point.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? Big takeaways?
I think, like I said before, I think the mentor program training are so valuable in anything that we do, and I'm just 100% in favor of that concept and using that.
Yeah, I agree. I am too. And you know, something else that came to mind I meant to mention was the learning model. The learning model is very much a mentor program where we get to mentor one another. And you know, the principles are so powerful. Learning by the Holy Ghost, exercising faith in Christ, and then teaching one another. It's just the way to go. And having that open mind enough to learn from one another helps us only learn more than we would on our own. So that's why, you know, being able to gather and have this technology is so amazing to me, because we're able to hear from one another in real time and have these discussions. And we've got our groups that you're working with and doing great work with and getting to know. And, you know, you never know, those relationships might go on for a long time. I still have connections with my cohort from one of my school groups, so it's pretty amazing stuff.
Well, I think in this environment that we're working in, you know, doing these video calls and things, like, you're not our teacher. I don't look at you as our teacher now. I look at you as our mentor, that we can come to you and ask questions, and we're discussing. It's not like you're quizzing us and everything else. We're discussing. You agree with us, and sometimes you don't agree with us. And I think that's how we learn, you know, and we're going to be better because of it. And like with our groups, it's the same thing. I mean, we have our little assignment here. I'm actually a group leader tomorrow. We have our discussion questions and stuff, and everybody has an opportunity to prepare for this. But I'm gonna learn so much from these other people. I have my ideas, you know, but listening to them, what they think about mentoring and training, and, you know, like this training, these games, you know, using games and stuff. I just can't wait to talk to them and to see if they've ever done any of this stuff. So.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with you. I definitely feel part of the group with you. I consider myself a peer, you know, and so it's fun. I learn just as much from you guys as you learn from one another. So it's fun, and that's the way it's intended. You know, I don't think it's supposed to be, hey, this person's better than that person. We all have something to contribute. So pretty good experience. Yeah, and keep up the good work. I think just continue to what was I going to say? Continue to work together based on the strengths in your group. You're going to have struggles and adversity that we've talked about, but you have strengths in your group, and it all comes together. Well, I appreciate the discussion. I think for me, the training part of thing is you can train a group of people, you can train the masses, but you can only develop individuals, and they have to key into that. So, you know, if you learn how to tap into helping individuals act for themselves, that's where development happens. And if we're focused on that, if we're developing ourselves, we're going to be able to help others do the same thing. So that's been my big takeaway: is you can train the masses, but you develop the person. So.
Well, okay. One key I found to that is some people have had such restrictive lives, either because of their environment or because of how they were raised, I see those as two separate things. That sometimes you have to give them permission to develop before you can start helping them develop.
Yeah, to remove those barriers.
Hmm.
Yeah, sky's the limit, right?
Sometimes.
I was talking to a friend over a chat the other night, and I was asking about work because he works for a big company and he's got goals. He's like, I don't tell very many people this, but I want to apply to Harvard. I said, why not? You know, he said people give him a bad time for wanting to go to Harvard. I'm like, why? Anybody can go to Harvard. If you want to go, go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so don't. That goes with that. Brought that to mind, Rosemary. Why does he have those barriers? Of course he can apply to Harvard. There's no rules against it. So good. Well, we can all help each other, just like President Uchtdorf reminded us tonight. Do you guys have any questions?
Actually, I do have one. I was looking ahead a little bit, and it was mentioning the final exam at the end. Any heads up things on that? Is it going to be an all-inclusive exam for the whole semester, or?
It is comprehensive. I haven't looked at it too in depth, but I think you should be able to have all your resources available to you.
Okay.
That. It's just kind of to help you synthesize and put everything together. I haven't looked at all the formatting or what changes they've made to it, so. But I will look ahead and make sure I'm helping you prepare for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the doohickeys.
Okay.
So for these, for the upcoming doohickeys paper, we're gonna be now addressing the topics that we saw, like that we're seeing in these weeks for the next doohickeys paper, correct?
That's correct. Yep. So it's kind of a new paper with the same company.
With the same problem, but with different application.
Or different problems, different solutions, whatever you see. So, this week's training and development. Next week is safety. Motivation's in there. I can't remember the order of everything, but
Okay.
so basically we're going to want to identify problems and build solutions around what we've discussed between weeks 6 and 8.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep, good question. Anything else? Sorry about the grading confusion. Sometimes those assignments don't auto-grade, so I had to go in there and figure that out last night about how to. I had to go in individually and change those for each one of your scores. So it was supposed to auto-grade better, but it did not. So sorry for the scary failing grades.
That kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, I freaked out.
It does. So anytime that happens, just let me know and I can go in there and make the adjustments. I'm still getting used to the little intricacies of Island 3. So. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Jared. We could let you go to bed. So.
I gotta get up and going now.
Oh yeah, you're just on that all-nighter. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Uh-huh.
Bye.